All right, our big story. The St. Louis police officer accused of killing fellow officer Caitlin Alex in a game of Russian roulette. That's the allegation. Today we've learned new charges against the officers involved. According to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Officer Nathaniel Hendren, he's now being charged with drinking while on duty. This in addition to the charge of involuntary manslaughter. We've also learned the name of the third officer present that night. Again, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch says that Patrick Reardon, Hendren's partner, has also been charged with drinking on duty. Those charges were reportedly filed on the morning that Alex was killed. News on these charges coming as the top prosecutor in the city made a startling accusation that police have botched the investigation from the beginning. Our big questions out of this: what's gone wrong as police investigate one of their own? And will the family of Caitlin Alex get justice? Our own Elizabeth Pran has been on the story, on the latest developments. So let's talk about the allegation of a botched investigation. What are they saying specifically went wrong here?
Right, and this is brand new information. It's big. This is a big deal, right? These reports coming from the dispatch, the Post-Dispatch, are pretty unsettling, especially when you consider that these accusations come from the circuit attorney, Kimberly Gardner. She says that the St. Louis police have been obstructing the investigation. She says blood evidence was not taken at the hospital. Remember, they were taken to the hospital after the incident occurred. Instead, a urine sample was done and a breathalyzer was completed. But those two methods are not as accurate when it comes to testing for drugs and alcohol. She also believes the department was too quick to label it an accident. And we now hear that these two men, Nathaniel Hendren and Patrick Reardon, have been charged with drinking on the job. This is brand new information. We did not know this before. The STLPD is giving a briefing about the case just about an hour from now. We hope to hear more about what the Post-Dispatch has been able to report, and we also expect them to answer claims of the prosecutor. For now, his part, Henderson's attorney, is pushing back on Gardner's claims. He said, quote, "It is clear that Circuit Attorney Gardner cannot be impartial, unbiased, or objective in continuing to prosecute these charges, and that the entire investigation is unsalvageable." So it's been a really busy day in the case. Earlier today, Hendren was asking a judge to lower his bond, but instead it was doubled. It went from $50,000 to $100,000. Should he be able to make bond? Our affiliate, KMOV, reports Hendren will be put on house arrest and he will not be allowed to access any firearms. So these are all really big developments, things that we didn't even know this morning. You know,
obviously, I'm sure if you were to see this picture and go, what's with the black eye, from Hendren himself? So with that said, are we getting any more clarity about what happened? Because we know the story. You and I have talked about it, how this game of alleged Russian roulette, they've got a revolver, all bullets are emptied, one put back in the chamber. I think Hendren fires first into the air. She points it at him. The gun doesn't go off, and then he points it at her, and that's the last fatal shot. You
have to think in the press conference that people are going to ask why the black eye right away, right? Because right off the bat, he's claiming that this was an accident, right? So I want to set the scene for you because you just went over it a little bit. Officer Hendren and his partner, they're on duty, right?
Key point.
But they're at his house, which is about 2 miles outside the area that they're working to patrol. This is, of course, according to the charging documents. So then 24-year-old Caitlin Alex shows up. And this is, like you said, when they started to play this game, allegedly, of Russian roulette. When you empty a revolver, you put one bullet back, you spin the barrel, and then you start shooting at each other, right? That's what you're supposed to do when you play this game. According to prosecutors, it was Hendren who took out the revolver. He started the game. They passed the gun back and forth. But then on the third pull, that is when Alex was shot right point blank in her chest, and they take her to the area hospital where she did die. He's charged with involuntary manslaughter in the first degree and armed criminal action relating to the death of a fellow officer. And now these new charges of drinking on the job. His partner, Patrick Reardon, is also facing charges of drinking on duty. He denies the charges through an attorney. So, like I said, it seems every hour we get these little bits of information, and as soon as that press conference comes out about an hour from now, I'm curious about that black eye, because there's rumors, but there's nothing that we can confirm.
Got it. Well done.
Thanks.
Again, there's a lot going on here. Okay, Elizabeth Pran on the story for us. So let's get Joey Jackson's take, HLN legal analyst, great criminal defense attorney. First, your take to the new charges here about drinking on the job, and how does that impact the investigation?
Oh, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. I think from the outset, Mike, there was something rotten about it. That's why the attorney involved, the county attorney, is saying, wait a second, you classify this as an accident. We don't even know what occurred. You heard the chief or the superintendent of the police come out and say, oh, it's accidental. Then they backtrack from it. Here are my thoughts. Number one, police should not be investigating police. That's just basic and standard. That should be the protocol. Why? Because there's an inherent conflict of interest. I work with you. I know you. Am I going to be objective about how I evaluate it? Number two, I don't think a local district attorney should be investigating either. That is inherently conflicting because you work with the police all the time to build cases. There has to be some independent outside party who looks at this, examines this, and that'll give it public confidence, and ultimately we will be able to rely upon the charges. Final thing, and that is in terms of the alcohol, it messies it. It messies it because now we know that there's a backstory, not the least of which, as you spoke with Elizabeth about a minute ago, the black eye. Where does that come from? When you're playing Russian roulette, you're not fighting each other. This is not a UFC match. You're putting a bullet in the cylinder of that gun and spinning it around. So how did that happen? And I would suspect, based upon the alleged cover-up, that there could be even more charges to come predicated upon the officers who initially arrived and what their narrative was as to what occurred.
Yeah, because you're finding out that this charge of drinking on the job, that happened as the tragedy is unfolding.
Yeah, that,
right?
Completely problematic. And again, to Elizabeth's point, as she's investigating this and looking at it, doing some great reporting, it's changing by the minute, right? And so we don't know ultimately who was drinking. Well, they do claim to know who was drinking. Who else, I should say, may be drinking, if anyone, how that factored into the equation. What specifically were they doing? Was this a fight? Was it really Russian roulette? Was it something that went bad? Why were they taking that frolic and detour off of their actual route that they should have been patrolling and supervising? So a lot is developing and unfolding. I suspect we'll learn a lot at the 2 p.m. press conference. But if I had my druthers and I had to guess, I think there will be additional charges here that would be forthcoming, not only as to the officer who shot and fired, but as to any other officer who was there who might have seen something and having a duty and obligation to report, didn't report, but just went with the narrative of, shh, it's an accident, it's all going to be okay. Not okay, as we're going to see.
Yeah, transparency in the investigation key for sure. All right, Joey, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Always. Thank you, Mike.